Welcome back to the Property Playbook. We're your hosts, Elena Sarditas
and Erica Reddy-Shakat.
And even though we are currently in the spring, summer is just around the corner. And with summer comes the talk of cottages.
All things recreation. So let's dive into the recreational market because I think it's gotten a bit of a bad rap in the last, I want to say, couple of years where people have been a bit nervous to jump and what is it looking like? And oh gosh, values are falling off a cliff. So let's debunk the recreational market.
Well, this is my thing. I always like to move when everyone else is not moving.
100%.
So 2021, would you say, was like the peak of the recreational market?
What are we now, 2024? Yeah.
So like during that time, everyone was buying cottages. Like you couldn't leave a cottage on the market for like a minute and people were jumping at it. Like prices were skyrocketing. Everyone was buying them. I think it also had to do with COVID where they were like,
yes,
we have no place to go. So we'll go to the cottage country, which I know locals in cottage countries hated that.
Yes.
But that was when most people were using them. Now we're seeing kind of a shift where people are like, oh, I can get on a plane again. I can travel again. Maybe I want another place in the city. Like, I don't want to go that far. And now they're starting to let some cottage properties go. So like the cottage market is pretty slow. Like it is a very much a buyer's market. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You go there every weekend.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I love the recreational market. We personally are invested within the recreational market. And yeah, I think the really interesting patterning was the pandemic purchases and this notion that no one was ever going back to work. And so people literally like sold their Toronto, sold their city, whatever city it was, property, and went into the recreational market and thought, oh my gosh, this is my whole entire new life. And then, kind of rewind about a year's back when all of a sudden we were getting back to office, this, that, the other, they were like, sorry, I am not commuting from here anymore. And this is not going to work. And this is not going to suit my needs. And so, yes, you have definitely seen prices soften in the recreational market. And I think what that means is it makes it approachable for those that actually are thinking, wow, this secondary market might be for me. It's not as terrifying as it used to be. But I also think too, there's a lot of great lessons that came out of people that did purchase these recreational properties that I think you can take going forward if you do want to enter the recreational market, because it's not for the faint of heart.
I would just say know what you're buying, because I find that a lot of people that were looking in the recreational market, I'm not a great example for this. I can sell here, there, anywhere, and I will go everywhere. But you need to learn the market and the product that you're selling, or you're gonna put your clients in a tough situation.
Yeah. And I think this is where there are experts that sell recreational and rural properties for a reason. So there is an absolute must-have in having the right agent and the right fit for this, because you open yourself up to wells and cistern tanks and waterfront and frontage. And I mean, depending on where you are and what you're buying, all sorts of things that just aren't commonplace. And so knowing and understanding them is one thing, but also the cost to maintaining a secondary property is way more than anybody ever would imagine.
It's not just that, like what you're buying in the pocket that you're buying, depending on the jurisdiction, depending on the laws and the bylaws, might limit what you can do with that property. So like some people bought and they were like, I can Airbnb.
No.
The township actually passed something last week. You can't Airbnb.
Yeah.
So that's when partnering with a local expert is a huge advantage, because you would know that.
Yeah.
So I've had clients that have purchased recreational property. If I'm not able to serve them, or if I know someone in that area, I'm totally working with them. Why would I leave my clients open to that?
Yeah.
But we're also having hard conversations about, hey, this is a seasonal property. Do you know that you're financing regarding seasonal properties?
Yeah.
Hey, this is vacant land. Vacant land doesn't work the same as regular financing. You're going to have to do something a little different.
Yeah.
Or like, you can't Airbnb the property, or you can't do short-term rental. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
So like, you need to look into those if you're going to purchase, and if that's your goal within purchasing. Then if you're buying it for yourself, which a lot of people I think got caught in this section, they didn't realize the cost, like you said.
Yes.
They didn't understand what a septic tank was. They didn't understand what a well system was. They didn't understand any of that. Bought the property and was like, everyone has cottages. It must not be that hard.
Yeah.
And then realized how much the upkeep of the cottage is. And was like, I don't want this anymore. I want to sell.
Totally. And listen, it's one of those things. So my husband always jokes, he's like, you have a guy for everything. And I'm like, I do have a guy for everything because I am not up there chopping down trees and creating firewood. I don't know how to service and clean a hot tub. I have no idea what to do with a chimney as far as maintenance is concerned. We have a cistern tank. We need water delivered. We have a septic tank. We need that pumped out. I mean, goodness gracious, that list, how long was that list? And I can do none of that. And so, yeah, there's a guy for everything in cottage country or, cabin country or wherever you might be. And so I think there's the notion of understanding A, what you're purchasing, but then B, what does that look like to upkeep all of that? Or are you on an island where you need a boat and it's remote? Okay, well, that's a whole other, kettle of fish. So net, listen, I think a recreational property, if there's a time and a place for it, provides so much enhancement to your life and to your lifestyle. But it is not for the faint of heart. And it is a massive time commitment, financial commitment, all of these things. But it is tenfold on also what it gives you back when you're able to be there and enjoy it and have it in your lifestyle.
Definitely. So kind of run me through it. You're looking to purchase a recreational property. What's kind of your steps? Because you've bought one.
Yeah. So I think number one step is aligning with an expert. I cannot stress this enough. You need to ensure you have got a really qualified agent on the other side of that property because you are, like we've talked about, probably buying something that you don't know a ton about. And if you know a ton about it, amazing. You still need to align with somebody that really knows that market because it's knowing the property. It's also knowing the comps. This is why you hire real estate agents. There's a reason that we exist in this world. So I think number one is aligning with that agent. And then number two is really figuring out what you want. I mean, if this is new for you and you've never explored this kind of lifestyle, it's doing the commute, it's doing the drive, it's understanding cottage country traffic, it's figuring out, do you want a place that has, one entryway in and one entryway out, or do you want something that has like 17 back roads? So no matter what, you can get in and out of it if the major, highway, for example, is bottlenecked with an accident. So I think it's, agent, then it's location, then it's really understanding the location. And then it's probably trying that location on for size. It's actually, I've had this conversation with people that have bought and go, my gosh, I didn't realize how much you schlep up and schlep back and you this and you that. So it's, maybe it's getting an Airbnb for a month and going, okay, every single weekend, we're going to commit to what this would look like to own a recreational property. And we're going to pretend that we own one. And we're going to pack up the car every Friday and we're going to pop up and drive in traffic up, and we're going to see what this feels like. And we're going to try this on for size. And it's really seeing yourself in this new life because it's a big change. And then from there, obviously the process unfolds of, okay, well, where do you want to be? And now you've narrowed that down and then you've, started to look and then you found your place and then you've gone through all your obviously conditions and inspections to firm it up and then you own it. And then you have this whole entire new extension of life.
I think, and this is where I've thought about recreational property, is we're so busy in our day-to-day life that if we can have somewhere that's an hour away, an hour and a half max, that is close enough that I can get to, but also close enough that I can get back, that will allow me to relax. And if I can't get back quick enough, like you can't get back quick enough on a plane. Like if you're away and you have to get back, which I know we're not saving people's lives, but like people seem to think that if we're not the person there, nothing can happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to be close, which is why like in our pipeline of what are we adding to our portfolio long-term, recreational property is part of that little group of properties that we will add on.
Yeah.
And it's solely for that purpose. It's we want something close enough that we can leave, but also close enough that we can come back.
Totally. And I think what's so exciting about the recreational market is this looks different for everybody. If we're looking kind of outside of Toronto, for example, you can be looking kind of Niagara, or go opposite ends, Prince Edward County. You can be Eastern Townships, Kawarthas, Muskokas, Georgian Bay, Point of Barrel, Collingwood. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And that's so many places spanning from, west to east and all across the north. And so to your point, it also comes down to, okay, what do you find relaxing? I know some people that getting to say the county and enjoying what kind of that emerging wine county country, whatever we want to say, has to offer, all of the amazing shops, restaurants, walking trails, the beaches, that fills their cup. Others, it's jumping on the slopes and skiing and biking. Others, it's being remote on an island. So what is your relaxing? Because, your version of relaxing, of being an hour and a bit from the city, might not be my version of relaxing, of maybe being on an island where it takes me goodness knows how long to get back to the city, because that's where I unplug. So I think you've identified a really great point of like, how do you unplug? Where do you unplug? What do you unplug with? And then finding what fits the mold. And then also, to your earlier point, looking at, okay, is this just for enjoyment or is this enjoyment with investment? And then if you're, trying to capitalize on short-term rental or Airbnb or something like that, then does the township or the place or the county actually align with your goals as well? So there's a lot to unpack when you're looking at the recreational market.
So, my clientele is a typical hybrid. So a lot of them that are investors are or were both looking outside of Toronto to invest in recreational properties because they wanted to now enjoy it, but also make a profit off of it. So we've partnered with some fantastic agents in different pockets. And recently I actually sent an agent, a client of mine, and I said, can you please help them? They're looking in your pocket. And the agent's like, I talked to them on the phone. Everything is great. But what they're looking for right now, the bylaws are changing in our area and they might not be able to have this. Because they're there day in and day out. This is their job. They eat, breathe, and sleep that area. Mm-hmm. They're like, but the town over doesn't have any regulations on it. And if we get it like before a certain date, like you're grandfathered in.
Right.
So we have a plan. They're buying in that pocket. We found a couple options. They're coming next week in a look. So like you need to know what you're buying and you need to know how close they are to making changes to policies because COVID shifted those markets a little differently.
Yes.
The people that were there year round, because there are people that live in cottage country year round. Cottage country, is that like a proper
cottage
term?
Country, 100%.
Are we calling it cottage country? Year round, that absolutely hated people coming in and out and in and out. So some places are grandfathered into Airbnb licenses where that specific property has it. But if someone buys it and doesn't use it, it's gone.
Yep.
So like you need to be extremely careful with what you're buying and what your purpose behind buying it is if you're investing in a further out market. And I get, you say this all the time, try it on for size, but I would try it on for size. Or if you know someone in the area, like you need to pick a pocket or pick an area that you're actually going to visit. Like for me, if it's too far, I'm not going.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the number of times I've had people that like, even after they've bought it, they've called me and they're like, how do you do it? What are your pointers? What are your tips? I'm like, what do you mean? What are my pointers and tips? You've bought the place. Like, you're committed. And they're like, no, but like, how do you do your toiletries? And what do you do for the food? And I'm like, really? But I'm like, okay, I guess you're right. This isn't a one size fits all. And so, I mean, if we want to even unpack that, like I have 2 of everything because I've put it to a point that like we can literally spur of the moment be like, we're heading north. And I'm like, perfect, great. Everything's there. I don't need to worry. I've got cosmetics for myself. I've got changes of clothes. I've got everything for my family. We've got enough stuff in the freezer that we can throw something in the oven when we get there on Friday night. And then we can figure out our plan for the weekend. But there isn't the stress of like, oh my gosh, okay, well, we haven't packed and we're not organized. And we don't have this. We don't have this. And we don't have this. Okay, well, now I need to get home. And as you can see, also, you've talked yourself out of going.
That's the key point. If you don't know what you're getting into, you won't actually use it.
Totally.
And there's when you will call, and in a few years, you'll call and say, listen, sell the property. And I think that's what we're catching right now. We're catching a lot of people that bought during peak pandemic season. Can we call it a season now? I guess so.
I mean,
I'm calling it a season now.
Duration of way too much time.
Yes. And now they're like, well, life's gone back to normal or a new normal, where we don't need to go up to the cottage every weekend, or we don't have the luxury to do that because our friends want to come over, or we want to go out, or we want to travel more. So they're putting those properties up on the market now. But again, the market is different. It's sitting a little bit longer. They're not selling as quick as when they bought it. So prices have, in my opinion, dropped in those pockets. No, they
absolutely have. It's not even like is something to,
So if you are thinking about recreational property at all in your wheelhouse and you have the means to do it, even with the interest rates the way that they currently are, I would be looking at it right now because there's going to be deals there.
You've also got great optionality. So the beauty is if you decide, okay, I want to be here or I want to be there, you've got multiple properties that you can also go and look at and explore and really figure out what the right, offering is for you and your needs. And so I think that's what also makes the recreational market really exciting and really approachable right now is, you do have a little bit of the ability to be in the driver's seat. And when you're making such a massive lifestyle decision, commitment, and change, I really think it's important that you can take the time that you need to make that decision and not feel rushed or pressured. And so to not have that rush and not have that pressure, I think is huge. And to make that decision is, you don't want to make it without a lot of thought and consideration. And the other thing I'll say to that too, that I think is important, there's probably two other pointers that I've got. One is understanding what your life looks like there. So there have been situations where, okay, we look at, say, a soccer league, for example, for our little one. Okay, are we doing the soccer league in Toronto or are we doing the soccer league, in our case, in Collingwood? Because are we going to be committed kind of through June and July to being up there on the weekends, or are we going to be committed to being in the city? So there's an aspect of planning your life too that I think goes into the recreational property. And also, I think it comes down to also being comfortable with there's going to be times when nobody is there. And, if you're buying strictly kind of a cottage, well, there's seasonality to it. If you're buying a cabin where the goal is to predominantly be, utilizing, say, the ski season, the shoulder seasons might not get as much use. And there is kind of this mentality where you have to be, frankly, just, okay, that is what it is. That was our choice. We're going to use it for this duration of time. And if we're there for Thanksgiving and Easter or whatever holidays it is that you celebrate and a couple weekends in the summer, then this property's done it's had its place. But I think sometimes people struggle to kind of be like, well, I'm going to have something, but I'm not going to use it all the time. But is that okay? And it costs me money. So you can see how it's just not a decision that you take lightly. And there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Definitely. The other thing that also I would look at if you're a business owner or if, you have an extended family, a lot of people I know use their cottages to reward clientele of theirs or to reward different people within their companies or their businesses. So they'll send people up for the weekend or send people up for 2 weeks and be like, enjoy it. And for them, they're like, you know what? It's fine. Everyone around me is having a great time. They're enjoying the property. It's fine that it's empty. It's not really empty. I've gifted it to someone. Mm-hmm. Have it for the weekend.
Yep.
And that's a great gift. Who
Totally.
doesn't want to go to the cottage for the weekend?
And I think that's the big thing. I think it's all the mindset that around it, the mindset of, okay, what does it cost? Kind of what's the benefit to my life and to my lifestyle and to the enhancement, because does that outweigh the costs? And for some people, the answer is yes. And for others, it's a hard no. And it's looking at seasonal rentals and saying, I really want the lifestyle factor. I really want to enhance my life. But you know what? Maybe just being there for the 8-week ski season is plenty. Or maybe just being there for the peak month of July or August in cottage country totally suits my needs. And frankly, from an investment standpoint, if you're going to run the dollars and cents, it's probably better to just do, the 1 month or the 8 weeks if that's where your comfort lies.
And there are people that do that. So, for example, we have an island coming up for sale. This is why this whole cottage discussion came up. So the island that we have coming up for sale has 3 families that have been renting it before my clients even owned it. And they've been renting it for since the beginning of time. Their families come up. They each have their month during the summer seasons that they come. They pay the exact same rate every month. And there are families that are like this, that are generational cottage renters. And they've aligned themselves with the family. Sometimes they don't even rent it to anyone else, but they've been doing it for so long. These are the people.
Yeah.
So the next people that buy it, most likely, if they don't use it fully for themselves, are going to inherit these 3 families that take a month each, and they pay a significant amount of money to live in this cottage because it's their family cottage.
Absolutely.
So that could be the option too. Renting's not a bad thing, especially when you're trying it on for size.
Yeah.
But it depends on what you need it for.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty is the recreational market, there is no one size fits all. And there's always going to be a circumstance or a situation that works. It's just how it works for you. And I think you really want to try it on because it is a huge change in lifestyle. So as we talked about, whether it's a short-term rental, whether it's a seasonal rental, whether it's maybe exploring it that way, whether it's maybe doing the diligence and having the conversation with other people that have done it and learn why they did it and why they chose to buy versus rent or rent versus buy and what does that look like. But there's endless opportunities within the recreational market. And I really do, as a biased recreational market user, it is something that is so incredible to have.
I think my question is going to go down to, is there something that users beware? If you're buying in these pockets, beware of a certain thing or something you wish you would have known. I think you grew up in recreational.
I did.
There's nothing that was a learning curve predominantly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's necessarily like a blanket piece of advice on kind of a buyer's beware. I think probably if there is a blanketed piece of advice, it's twofold. It's what we've talked about. It's try it on for size and that the costs do creep. I mean, unless you are the handiest human being known to man that knows how to do everything and anything recreational market, the costs creep. The maintenance creeps, all of the things that you just don't think about being, perhaps a homeowner or a condo owner here in the city changes when you get up there. So just be mindful of that and set that kind of rainy day fund aside.
And I would say the other thing to keep in mind that the conditions that you use in offers for recreational properties do vary. Like,
Definitely.
there's a lot more things that we could put in that we wouldn't necessarily put in a house in Toronto.
For sure. I mean, you don't have a well in Toronto, so you're not inspecting a well, for example. You're not inspecting a septic, for example. You might not be doing a water test because you want to check the drinking water and what that's like. So it really is a different market. So I think you're right. Kind of the other piece is really understanding what you're getting into and who you need to align with to make sure you're making the right choice.
And they could all be fairly different. Like, you could be buying in the same pocket, but maybe your house wasn't updated. And like, it has all the original stuff and you need to know what you're getting into before you buy in.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I do think research is the best thing to tell someone. Research, and align yourself with an expert, because I don't think anyone will know the pocket better than someone that eats, breathes, and sleeps that pocket.
100%. Yeah.
Once again, it's Elena Sarditas.
And Erica Reddy-Chiquette.
And if you'd like a recreational referral, feel free to reach out. We will help you. Thank you so much for listening to Property Playbook. If you like content like this, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe.